We are live. S- We are live. Nancy says, "We're ready. Where are you?" We are here. Welcome back to the show, everybody, for a Thursday Night Live for some current events, a few current events. We're going to get into some fun stuff today. Project Seagate, a lot of Dolphin information in Hawaii, Stargate, Diego Garcia. We're going to be playing a lot of videos today, too, with some whistleblower testimonies. It's going to be a little bit of a different format today, but it's going to be a lot of fun, some great information. But before we get into all that, tomorrow, Aaron and I are leaving for Hawaii, the Big Island, to get geared up for our conference starting next Monday on the 20th. And we couldn't be more excited. It is literally right around the corner. Thank you guys all who bought tickets and are coming out to hang out with us. We appreciate the support, and we can't do these events without you and your support, and it's just going to be a blast. But if you can't make it in person, which it's a little too late to do that, unless you wanted to hop on a plane to Hawaii, we have
Yeah.
virtual passes available for $55 on the website, journeytotruth.online. A virtual pass gets you the opening and closing ceremonies, all nine presenters, some meditations and activations on site. If we have a Starlink Mini, I got a battery. We're going to try and get some internet on the actual sites themselves. Maybe Volcano National Park, City of Refuge. Who knows? Maybe even a snippet from one of the Dolphin boats. We'll see. But that part is up in the air still. But we're going to try to bring you the best live stream experience possible. It's only $55, and it includes the replay and recording. So, and you'll have access to that for 6 months, 6 months before that link expires. Um, yeah, it's going to be amazing. Are you excited, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I can't wait. It's gonna be a blast. Can't wait to see you all there. And but if you can't make it, yeah, buy a live stream. It'll be worth it, guys. Totally, it will be worth it. It's gonna be
hmm
amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And Aaron has quite the journey ahead of him tomorrow. Long flight, big time change. We both,
Very early flight too.
right?
Yeah.
We both do, but he's coming all the way from the East Coast, so it's a little more strenuous for him. So we're going to try and fly through this stuff tonight, so Aaron can get some sleep, and I still have some packing to do. But we wanted to go live one last time and kind of get ourselves and everybody here in the audience into that Hawaii mindset and that vibe. So we're going to start the slideshow. And I want to talk about the Hawaii Stargates first, and which is some interesting stuff. And then we're going to segue into some whistleblower testimony from a man named Aaron McCullen, an old Project Camelot interview about Project Seagate, which is a human dolphin hybrid program, which is very fascinating. And what we're going to do is play through some of that testimony, some of that video testimony, and maybe pause along the way and talk about it. But we're going to play some longer clips. The first one is, I think, 10 minutes long. So, and we'll pause through it. But there's a lot of very intriguing information in there. And instead of us trying to relay that, I was like, we'll just play this stuff and just, have some fun listening to it to ourselves. And then we have a couple other videos we're going to play. And then we're going to end with this whistleblower testimony from 2018 that I found on TikTok actually about this military man. I don't know what branches of military he served, but he was training in the Bay in Florida, I think Tampa Bay, when he claims a dolphin grabbed his ankle, bit his ankle, and drug him underwater and brought him to this underwater cave, essentially, that opened up and there was oxygen in there, and there were children being housed there, potentially trafficked children. And he realized that that cave was actually the basement of a building 3 miles away. It was like a whole tunnel network, and it's a fascinating story. So it'll be, that's a really long video. We'll play through that and we'll just share that here. So without wasting any more time, I'll start the slideshow now. And Aaron, if you notice any questions or any comments in the chat that you want to address, let me
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, we'll do.
Everyone seems to be talking about Jeremy the dolphin. It's Gerald, I believe. Gerald.
Gerald.
So Gerald is, yeah, so that's another one that we're not even really going to cover today, but we did cover it a couple weeks ago. Whether or not there's truth to it or not, this guy, woke up on the beach all sunburned, and he said he was kidnapped by dolphins for 3 days to help build an underwater city. And there's this whole wild story. But it turns out the guy actually is like an MIT student and has a really interesting history. Um, I'm sure your Hawaiian gathering will be epic. Yes, it's going to be great. Oh, and there are UFO tours. We're going to be doing UFO tours with Lisa Thompson, and those are separate tickets. And there's only 15 of those left. And for anyone who is coming, who's listening to this, there's only 15 spots left for the UFO tours. But those can also be bought on site, or you can buy them ahead of time on the website, journeytotruth.online. All right, so let me get this slideshow going and share my screen, and we will just jump into this. Okay. Look right, Aaron.
Looks good.
All right. Let me pull up the chat here on my phone so I can see it because I don't have, whoa, turn that down. I don't have my, what do you call it? I don't have my third monitor up today. And then, anyway, we'll get started here. Okay. Yeah. So this is just the flyer for the conference. We have an amazing lineup: Laura Eisenhower, myself, Heidi Tihana, Melanie Charest, and John Charles Moyen, Cara Bernarda, Sky Cubby, Arcturus Rod, Debbie Solaris. And Lily Nova will be there doing some meditations, ensemble activations for the closing and opening ceremony. And we have a couple other surprises too, so it'll be a lot of fun. And we might as well talk about the Hawaii Stargate. So this conference is going to be essentially also a grid working mission. And we're going to be, there's a lot of interesting things happening with Hawaii. There's a lot of floods, some weather anomalies, and I think we're in the midst of a planetary shift right now. And there seems to be a lot of people putting out information about Stargate 11, the Hawaiian Stargate, which I really didn't know about. And I'm gonna play this video from this girl, and oh my gosh, I forgot the name of her Instagram account. It might pop up whenever I start playing this. So it's a short clip of her talking about the Hawaiian Stargate. But something I was able to find online about it, the Hawaiian Islands hold the most powerful 12-dimensional inner Earth stargates. So when you and she's and what this is from an expert. I just took a clip out of something I was reading. It says, so when you destroy the grids in the surrounding area, which is potentially what they've been doing and what they have been doing all over the planet, when you destroy the grids in the surrounding area, you weaken that connection, the unifying frequencies that are anchoring in on this planet to bring in a new Earth. So they're destroying the grid disrupts the unifying frequencies, right? And there's also an interesting whistleblower testimony about HARP in Alaska being connected to Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. But let me play this video first, and then we'll get into that.
Stargate 11 Hawaii is getting recoded. It's getting rebuilt. It's getting redesigned and back to its original authentic energy. This energy that it holds, this frequency that it holds connection. It holds unity. It holds harmony. That is the main frequency that it holds. It's harmony. It's connection. It is love. It is working and respecting with the elders, the wisdom of this planet, knowing the nature, the elements. Why I'm bringing this up is we are humans on the human experience, but we did come to planet Earth for a human experience. So many people are not doing their soul work. They are not doing the contract that they signed up for. Own your energy. Own your connection.
So she basically just explained, the importance of these Stargate activations that were recoding the entire grid, essentially, of the planet. And the Dolphins play a big part of that. And that's why I wanted to get into some of this stuff, because you think, this human hybrid dolphin program is just about, for military purposes, which it is. But it really is interesting what this whistleblower explains the dolphins are on this planet to do. And that's going to come a little later. But there's also, and Aaron, don't forget, I can't see you because of the way this is set up. So if you're trying to say something, just jump in.
Oh, okay.
But also what I found was this, I think it was Linda Moulton Howe interviewing this Navy whistleblower. It was anonymous. And he was talking about HARP, the HARP facility in Alaska, having a Stargate, housing a Stargate that went directly to Pearl Harbor. And I don't know if this is a man-made Stargate or if it's natural. He didn't elaborate on that. But I'm thinking to myself, maybe that's the significance of the original Pearl Harbor attack in the first place. Maybe there was always about a Stargate. I don't know if you've even considered that, Aaron, but I wouldn't surprise me.
It
And
would.
then
Yeah.
the movie The Final Countdown is about a time travel. The military Navy destroyer accidentally slips through a portal and they find themselves back in time before the attack on Pearl Harbor. And they're trying to basically stop the attack. And then there's all these weird time anomalies and all this stuff. And I do believe that story, that the movie's based on a true story, whether that's what they claim or not. So it makes me rethink Pearl Harbor in a whole different way, and it makes me think about whenever Trump was questioned about Iran and not why he didn't let the Chinese know that he was going to be attacking Iran, and then he said, "Well, why didn't you let me know about Pearl Harbor?" He brought up Pearl Harbor again, so I think that could be a nod to this is like another Stargate location. And then this is the So this is from Indigo Angel's new book, The Guardian Alliance book. It's massive, but she talks about side by side, ironically, a Stargate in Kauai, Hawaii, and then another one in Alaska. And the function of the one in Hawaii is celestial repair and 48D holographic healing system. Holds a five-star pointed Venusian temple and waterfall system and echoes with the presence of celestial earth guardians encodes Andromedan, Emerald, and Lemurian codes, interlinking Inner Earth, Angelics, and ancient Venusian seraphim orders, home of the original Swan templates and Dove Grid Center for the Pacific Realm. And the Alaskan one serves as the northern anchor of the Dove Light Matrix. She uses a lot of terminology that's over my head. I know it's like a continuation of the Ashiana Dean's work. Either way, I found it interesting that she, had back to back the Hawaii and Alaska Stargates, and according to that whistleblower, they're directly connected. So I don't believe there's a coincidence there. And just I wanted to share this just to kind of show some of the significance of it. The this is her book, The Guardian Alliance Grid Work and New Earth Prophecy. It's 2 volumes. You go to, I think it's on Amazon now, but if not, you can go to our website, indigoangel.com, and you can order that. And here is a little more about the Stargate in Kauai. So it's 144th dimensional Guardian Stargate functioning as one of the most sacred and protected sites on Earth. The coastal gate serves as the official home of the celestial Earth Guardians, a collective of multidimensional protector beings who safeguard the soul body of the planet, humanity's original angelic template, and the eternal codes of the Christos Sophia. And there's, I think there was something. Oh, they act as the timekeepers and soul witness, orchestrating the passage of spirits, travelers, and interdimensional visitors moving through the Na Pali corridor. So there's a lot, like I said, a lot of terminology here that might be over our head. But either way, it seems to be the Stargates in Hawaii are very significant. They're coming up at this time for a reason. And, there's this big planetary shift occurring right now as we're speaking. Lots of energies moving on the Earth, and we're moving into a whole new era, in my opinion. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we're going to be in Hawaii right now doing some actual grid work and activations, I think, to assist with that. So it's, very exciting to be a part of that. And obviously, if you're joining on the live stream as well, that's why we want to do some of these activations and meditations via live stream, because that allows, anyone who's tuning in to assist in this process as well. Aaron, did you have anything you want to add to that?
No, that's amazing.
Okay. Thank you for that insight. Um, Anyway, yeah, so we're gonna get into. Sorry if I'm moving a little fast, guys. We have a lot to get through tonight. So we're gonna get into Aaron McCollum, Project Seagate whistleblower, and this is just a brief description bio from Kerry Cassidy's website on who he is. It says, as Aaron is on a journey of self-discovery, there are still areas of his life he does not recall or understand. At the time of this interview, which was May 2010, I believe, at the time of this interview, however, it is beginning to come to light that he himself may be a dolphin human hybrid. During those early years in his cover During those early years, his cover was acting as a fully functioning member of the U.S. Coast Guard. Simultaneously, he was a covert agent leaving his company at night or on weekends to handle operations that involved MILABs, military abductions, as well as taking part in what he called terminations, where the individual was terminated rather than reprogrammed. At a certain point, he was based in the area around the Caribbean, where he found himself involved in a top secret program called Project Seagate at an undersea base. There, his experiences become even more bizarre, involving experimentation with dolphins, time travel through portals, and telepathic communication. And right now, we are going to move into playing this clip and just checking the chat right now. Isn't Hawaii supposed to be the Earth's heart chakra? Yes, many people claim that, but what I'm finding is a lot of people claim other areas of the heart chakra as well. I've heard the same about Mount Shasta. I've heard Uluru in Australia is the Earth's heart chakra. And actually, if you look at Uluru from above, it ironically looks like a human heart. It's like eerily similar to a human heart, the shape of it. So I don't know if there's multiple chakra systems on the planet. I would say that's probably more likely the case. So Hawaii could definitely be a heart chakra.
Shasta. Most people say Shasta is the root chakra of the
The
planet.
root chakra. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I misunderstood that.
But that's most of the information about it. It's every once in a while I'll see somebody say, no, actually it's this chakra. But like that's generally agreed upon is it's the root chakra. But Hawaii, I'm not sure. It might be the heart chakra. It's very
Yes.
possible.
Somebody said Japan, dude. Japan, not China. Correct. I'm talking about Pearl Harbor. I might have misspoke there.
Oh yeah, that's
But
Japan. That's Japan.
but yeah, but Trump was when interviewed whenever China asked him about Iran. That's what he said, which was interesting because I'm pretty sure it was a Chinese reporter. Maybe it was a Japanese reporter. Either way, I apologize for that.
Well,
Thank
I
you
just
for
did a Google search and it says Maui specifically is the heart chakra of the
okay.
planet. So the island next to the big island, supposed to
Oh,
be.
okay. So there you go.
There you go.
But yeah,
That's Hawaii.
correction about the Pearl Harbor, Japan, not China. So moving forward, the Project Seagate. Well, I'm going to press play on this. I have it at 1.5 speed, so it moves on a little quicker. It's still pretty easy to understand, but there's a lot to get through here. And I was like, man, I want to take out segments of this, but there's no way to really dive into this without just letting him explain this. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to hit play, and then I'll pause at any point, and then we can discuss it.
Which Jack pound for pound are one of the strong samples. Project Seagate adopted an aquatic side of it, where they were combining human and dolphin DNA to create, you could say, an aquatic type super soldier who had the abilities of telepathy, echolocation, being able to hold the breath for an extremely long time underwater, being even better at adapting to cold. Dolphins themselves can actually change their body heat depending on if they go up to the Arctic or if they're down in the equator.
Okay, so
So
are we talking about, you're saying genetically engineered, are they using human and dolphins, but are they ending up to look more like which?
There was a wide range. Initially, the project, as in with live genetic manipulation, they had a lot of failures where you get things like the thing that it disgusts me how they label it, the pictures of the Panamanian monster, which is not a monster. I think I showed you those pictures, and those pictures, if not, I'll get them to you, are of what you could say more of not a desired creation due to the project. Occasionally, underwater field exercises would happen and one would get away. This is when they expanded to where all exercises were done at a huge sea pool, is what they call it, that's actually in the base, so that they weren't actually out in the open. They were more in an enclosure.
But are they looking human?
Well, they do two models. They do a model that looks closer to dolphin,
right,
and they have a model that's much more closer to human. Yeah.
Okay, and what was your involvement?
My involvement with that was several reasons. One, I worked with the actual full-blooded dolphins because part of the program was I was selected in a very small group of people, part of the Super Soldier program, to learn certain traits that dolphins could do. One of them, which I think I talked about in the first interview, was echolocation synchronicity. What does that mean? That means that basically it means that the dolphins, which were more or less the instructors, were teaching humans how to do echolocation. This is not fantasy. This is something that really happens. In fact, it can happen in normal state. There's a 5-year-old blind boy who just made it on the news a couple weeks ago, who his mother was taking him out with dolphins, and the dolphins taught him how to echolocate. Now this boy doesn't need a cane. He walks around and he does echolocation all the time.
Okay, but echolocation is what? Is
Echolocation is, you could say, biological radar. They put out a frequency, it bounces off an object, it comes back, and therefore they can measure how big it is and how far away it is. It's what sonar is.
Okay.
So before we move on, by the way, his name's Aaron McCullen, and I could not find any information about him currently. This interview was from 2010, quite some time ago, and I couldn't find anything about him currently. And he's not the only one, talking about these human-dolphin hybrid programs. But what I also found interesting is the show The Inside Job on Netflix, that cartoon. One of the main characters is a human-dolphin hybrid, actually, and allegedly he's a byproduct of one of these engineering programs. And that show gets into cloning facilities and all the conspiracy theories, right? But I think it's based in a lot of truth. And I think they decided to make the human hybrid dolphin character a main character because they're telling us, like, they're more prominent than we might even understand. And if this testimony is true, that would lend credibility to that claim. So I'll keep just moving forward.
All right, so you're saying you worked with dolphins to do what?
To learn how to do echolocation, and as well, all right, let's get into the real bread and butter of Project Seagate then. Now, there was an alien side of things that were done. We can talk about that later. There was the super soldier aquatic program with the dolphin human hybrids, but then there was the real thing. The real aim of Project Seagate was that there's a portal.
Okay.
It is a portal that can be used. It was such a unique portal that, as far as I've been told, it's the only one on the planet. At least it's the only active one on the planet, as far as I know, because I don't recall being to any other ones. This portal can be used for interdimensional travel, off-planet travel, and under the right conditions, when it's set up right, can be used for time travel.
Okay, okay.
Now, you're asking, I know, and I'm getting that, sorry. What was my role? The team that I was with, which was called the Sentinels, which was a team of very highly trained people that had abilities to adjust to water in certain ways, because the portal is actually underwater. Now, these Seagates that are located in other places also are underwater. What they had to do, initially, about 20 years ago, they had sent some people through, but they weren't returning. And they had everything set up right. To talk about I have a schematic, but to talk about the science behind it, I don't really know. I know that, there was a certain room that was called the dome room, which was the room for creating the coordinates. They had these remote viewers that had another role playing it. They sent drones through the portal, and the drones had, through taking pictures, had discovered that the people on their side had died, sometimes violently. It was not because of a malevolent race. We're not the only planet that has water, but water on different planets has different characteristics, different chemical breakdown, different chemical makeup. So what they started doing was they had these drones that were bringing in samples of this water, and now what they have there, which they've had there it was there when I was already there, they had what was called the acclimation room, where you had tanks of water. This is why it'd be good at some point for you to interview Axe, my counterpart, because Axe was part of all of this, and she will give further in depth on some things. The water was of different characteristics, and they would place dolphins and sometimes humans, not the desired dolphins, maybe rejects or humans that were in my lab, into this water to see how they would react. People like me, people like Axe, they found were kind of anomalies. We could acclimate to any water. So let's just get to the point. Myself, Axe, and a few others were used to jump through this for more high priority missions.
Okay, missions going to what? Other dimensions? Going time
to
traveling elsewhere in the solar system
yes,
universe.
going to part. This facility was also worked in correlation with the naval galactic fleet, and even
Space Command.
Space Command, which there's a lot of people involved in Space Command. I think the last I heard there was about 600,000 humans, Earth humans, that are part of Space Command. That all have that are part of Majestic and Cosmic.
What's the purpose?
Okay, 3 main things. 1, the Dolphin human hybrid program, where they're still creating, they're still developing, they're still coming up with advancements and make no mistake, they're building an army, and they're of ones that look more Dolphin and ones that look more human. They also, with the Project Seagate portal, they use some of these hybrids they make are without souls, so they're used through these remote viewers, the 10 remote viewers that sit in what's called the row of chairs, where they can use them for more expendable missions, where if the body itself gets damaged, they can actually bring back the consciousness of that human into its real body.
Oh, right. And we talked about this in the last interview. In other words, but
I really don't like to compare movies to reality, but that Avatar movie
yeah,
is
absolutely.
not out of this world technology.
Yeah.
That is happening right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not just Project Seagate. There are other sub-projects that are using the same technology, just for different purposes.
Right.
The base is also, there's a section of Pro-C that is ran and operated by Greys and Reptilian, and not just them, but a few other races as well, that have, you could say, decided to jump on the team. They are doing a lot of different projects because Project Seagate is also connected to, there is an underground maglev that goes to Autek, which is at Bimini Island. There is also 2 small satellite entrances. They call them satellite entrances. They're small, like hubs. One that's located in St. Croix off of what's called Rainbow Beach, and another one in Water Island in St. Thomas.
Okay, so there's so much there in these interviews. So there's 2 interviews with him. The first one I think is like an hour and a half long, and the second one is 2.5 hours long. Tons of information. I cut out so much just to even get to the meat of this. And somebody was in the chat asking, 2010, May of 2010 is when this particular interview was filmed. And Aaron, have you seen this guy before?
I think I have actually. I don't know if I watched the entire thing, but I remember watching this interview at some point in time, part of it, at least at some point in time.
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely fascinating stuff. There's so much more he got into that I would love to cover. But to me, well, he's going to get into this next clip we're going to play. He really gets into what the significance of the Dolphins and what they're actually doing here on this planet, which I think it goes hand in hand with the Great Awakening and the Ascension and what we're all doing. There's a similar mission that the Dolphins are here for, and the whales. And yeah, so autism too. He's comparing dolphins to autistic children, and this is really interesting to me. And I would love anybody's thoughts on this in the chat because I feel I really resonate with this. I'll let him explain it, and then we can discuss it.
Is using.
And like I said, some of them are actually not necessarily carry the soul of a human. A lot of these autistic kids and some Asperger's are being born, and it is actually the soul, the energy, the life force of an extraterrestrial being. A lot of them being Syrian, actually. This is why autistic children work so well with dolphins, because they are on the same communication level. They are totally in sync.
Yes, and there also seems to be a plot surrounding autism that you and I talked about that has to do with what appears to be, comparing notes here, the 13th chromosome taking humanity, and actually what happens is throwing into humanity, in the mix of humanity, these autistic children that will raise the vibration and change. They actually will jump humanity to another level. And this is the objective here. And they're being, in a sense, they're being used, sacrificed, whatever you want to call it, created in order to be triggers for this process.
And this is why, and just based on you telling me that, let's compare another note. The global elite, for a long time, the reason why they allow these slaughters to happen of dolphins and whales. Dolphins and whales both serve two separate but very significant purposes. One is, you could say, maintaining the frequency of the planet, and the other one holds an energy balance. It sounds similar, but they're a little bit different. Whales hold like a kind of a frequency. They maintain a frequency. Dolphins maintain the energy balance. They have been allowed to be killed for so long because if their numbers get too large, it will actually cause a frequency shift within humans. So they've suppressed at that level. So them in turn.
Okay, I'm going to pause that for a second. If the dolphin population or whale population gets too large, it could actually result in a frequency shift for humans, which would assist in the Great Awakening, which is why it's illegal to swim with dolphins in a lot of locations like Hawaii now. And to me, they used to do dolphin assisted births, and these children who were born with basically in the water surrounded by dolphins, they would automatically there would be no disease or sickness, and they would also have higher IQs and a whole list of benefits just from these dolphin assisted births. And here he is claiming this is the reason that they allow the slaying of the dolphins and whales is to basically keep the numbers down so it doesn't actually assist in the consciousness of the planet, consciousness evolution. Uh-oh. Sorry. Let me
Is using.
And like I said,
let me go back to that.
This with autistic children and Asperger's children is because it's on their terms. Children and Asperger's cause a frequency shift within humans. So they've suppressed at that level. So them in turn doing this with autistic children and Asperger's children is because it's on their terms, not the terms of the dolphins and the whales, which are sentient beings that really came here from another world. Their history is quite a lot more than what.
Isn't it
modern
possible,
science says.
though, also that the sacrificed dolphin and whales, this is just, and now we're going into the world of conjecture, okay?
Yes.
So I will say that outright. But the idea is that you have soulless beings. If you have a dolphin or a whale that dies, if you capture their essence or their soul, then you can put that into one of those beings and have an ongoing consciousness.
Yes, you could. You could. In fact, sometimes that actually occurs naturally, and that's where you get these autistic children that actually, and I say Syrian, but I'm talking more of the soul of a dolphin, which is really the soul of a Syrian. This is something that, again, like you said, this could be a whole nother topic. This could be a whole nother interview. Me knowing the history of dolphins and why we worked with them at Pro-C, and I could do 2 hours on just that. But what I'm getting at is, it happens naturally. It is, and it's happening more and more and more. In fact, in Cirrus, in the origin of where dolphins come, there's been this wave of Cirrus, of souls from there, that are on that energy level of dolphins that have been coming here and embodying into humans. There's a little known species that are called the Nomos. I'm not sure if you're aware of them. You are. I should have figured.
No, I just think that I've heard of them.
The Nomos have had a big play. The Nomos prefer, they are kind of an energy type being that prefer taking the bodies of humans and dolphins that are from Sirius B.
And
the Dogon tribe of Western Sahara, they've known about this for thousands of years.
Okay.
So obviously it goes on and on, but the Nomos is what some would call the mer people, potentially mermaids, at least one group of them. And Aaron, did you have any insights on that before we move on?
Yeah, it resonates to me, all that.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the autistic children, they're obviously on a different spectrum, a different frequency, and it's hard for even some humans to be around them. It's almost uncomfortable. And you might think it's uncomfortable because of maybe the way they look or how they're acting, but really it's probably the frequency of their field. It's not necessarily compatible with us. So we'll be potentially uncomfortable around them. And what an interesting theory that they are Syrian souls, basically in human form, but they're such a high frequency soul. They embody the autistic children as it's part of their mission, literally to help the planet ascension. And I think that's fascinating. Um, who just the fact that he's also claiming that the dolphins come from another planet. And same thing Joan Ocean talks about, and who's in Hawaii. We were trying to get her to come to our event, but she is not in good health. But Heidi Tahana is speaking on Monday, and she's going to be really getting into the origins of these dolphins and whales that actually come from other worlds. And they get to Earth through underwater portals. And there's a lot more going on with them than we ever may understand. So just the fact that he's also saying this, and we have, people in Hawaii that are literally witnessing them come through portals, and they have even photographic evidence of in some cases of like half a dolphin because half of it's phased out. They're really fifth dimensional beings. And then this, I was just going to play for fun. This is my friend Derek Loudermilk. Just like 2 days ago, he posted this video, and it literally corroborates with exactly what Aaron McCullen was just saying about these dolphins coming here to assist with the planetary ascension. And he has a past life memory of a dolphin, and he remembers his mission. And we'll just play through this really quick because I just found it fascinating.
So a lot of people have been talking about dolphins lately, including that guy who was kidnapped. He says he was kidnapped by dolphins. That's a pretty interesting story. But I want to tell you about a lifetime that I became aware of, one of my other lives, where I was a dolphin. And if you guys don't know, my wife is a QHHT practitioner, and it's a form of hypnosis, if you're familiar with Dolores Cannon's work, where you visit other past lives or alternate lives. They're not always human. Sometimes you're in between lives. But in this case, I was taken to a water world where basically the whole planet is water. And so during the session, you're sort of re-experiencing or seeing through your mental imagery points from a lifetime. And it turned out that I was one of the dolphins who was like a liaison for the dolphin species with the Galactic Federation. And they were making the plans to bring dolphins from their home planet to Earth for the first time. Now, I think this was back before humans. And they wanted to bring dolphins and whales to Earth to work together to perform almost like grid work. But it was a really extensive process of, one, preparing the dolphin species genetically to be able to survive on Earth. So I was doing a lot of back and forth with the scientific team on like a Galactic Federation ship. But they were also had to prepare the ocean here. So eventually the way that they did it, and they moved like 100,000 dolphins through a portal from like water to water portal from the water planet to Earth. And then the mission, which took a long time, like thousands of years, millions of years, I don't know how long, the dolphins had to be moving around in pods and essentially doing like energy work along first the coastlines of all of the continents. So dolphins have been here a long time, and they've been doing a lot of really important work. And eventually they teamed up with the whales. The whales were doing more of like the deep sea energy work, if you want to call it that. So just really fascinating how that whole process went. And one of the feelings I got was like, oh my gosh, what an immense mission to facilitate this happening, bringing a species here, hundreds of thousands of years of work, genetic modification. It's a lot, but very impressive. What do you guys think?
So to me, I found that corroborating perfectly with what Aaron McCullen just said
Yeah,
about
absolutely.
And Derek had never heard of that. I asked him, I was like, "Have you ever heard of this guy?" And I sent him that clip, and he was like, "Wow," like, because
Yeah.
this was one of those things that just popped up just in time while I'm doing this research on dolphins, and he just shares this video. I think that type of stuff happens because it's in the air, right? You know how lots of people get the same idea at the same time. Like, didn't David Wilcock used to talk about that, Aaron? Like, basically these ideas are just like in the ether up for
Ye-
grabs.
Yeah. 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 Other people talk about that too. Yeah. It's in the morphogenic field, essentially. And multiple people can tap into the same thing because of that, because we're all connected to that field.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of like I also feel like a lot of people are tapping into this dolphin information. And I almost
Hmm.
feel like the whole Gerald thing, maybe it's satire, maybe it's not, but either way, it sparked the conversation. And I got
Yeah.
everyone talking about it. And that could have been by design. And well, I actually do believe it was by design because look where we're at now talking about this and how much is just coming to fruition. And, this is an interview where we just, referenced from 2010 that's completely relevant today about what we're hearing about these dolphins.
Right.
Okay. So we'll come back into the dolphins, but we're going to take a little side quest over here to Diego Garcia. Just because, while we're talking about water and ocean anomalies. So Diego Garcia is very fascinating. It showed up in many whistleblower testimonies. In fact, I put them all here. More than this, probably, but at least that we've had on our show, Tony Rodriguez has secret SSP memories from there. Same with Johann Fritz. Johann was actually stationed there in the military. Mark Demizio has memories from being stationed in the underground base at Diego Garcia. And then Joseph M. from the Ancient Enigma Files, which is our most recent interview on this screen, talks about extensively what he experienced at Diego Garcia, not from a secret space program, but just from actually being stationed there, including encountering a gray extraterrestrial. And I'm actually going to play a short clip from his episode here in a minute because it kind of corroborates exactly what all these other people are saying. But what got Diego Garcia back into the news? So when we struck Iran, well, they, for whatever reason, in retaliation, decided to fire two missiles at Diego Garcia. Allegedly, the one was a misfire and never made it, and the second one was shot out of the air. So nothing happened. But what it did do was get Diego Garcia in the news. And it brought a lot of attention to a place that most people, it was largely unknown to most people. It's out there in the middle of the Indian Ocean, and it's this anomalous place. There's not much landmass there. There's a lot of weird testimonies. And this is also the place where allegedly the missing Flight 370, the Malaysian Flight 370 ended up, was here in the Diego Garcia. Whenever it was teleported out of the sky in that video, it was brought here. And Mark Demizio's testimony is firsthand account of when that plane was brought to Diego Garcia, what was done with it and the passengers. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there. But, well, there's that clip. I thought I had
So
another slide. There it is. The slides are out of order. So I came across this. I was at the airport recently. Went back home for St. Louis for Easter, to St. Louis for Easter, and I saw this Newsweek magazine, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And it shows Trump and Xi Jinping basically playing Risk, what
Yeah.
which is kind of like what we're actually experiencing and witnessing right now. And then the centerfold of this magazine is a whole centerfold about Diego Garcia. And one of the pictures in that centerfold is Trump standing there with an American flag on this little island, right? But what was interesting to me is so suddenly, no one knows about Diego Garcia. It's not talked about for the longest time. Suddenly, Iran fires two missiles at it. And then we have a whole centerfold in Newsweek magazine about Diego Garcia. And they're calling it an island at the center of the New World Order. How the little known atoll of Diego Garcia is becoming another flashpoint in the global contest of power between the US and China. And one of the quotes from the article, if we don't control Diego, what this means is there is no way the West will be allowed guaranteed access to the Indian Ocean and eastwards. And another quote from the article, whoever controls Diego controls the Indian Ocean trade routes. Why that's interesting. Oh, this is another quote, really quick. What the negotiators failed to account for was the strategic dimension, and that failure, sources say, reflects a broader weakness in the current generation of UK political advisors who are quite unskilled in international affairs and particularly on strategic questions. They basically don't understand the world. Just some interesting verbiage there. Dimension, they don't understand the world. But they say whoever controls Diego Garcia controls the Indian Ocean trade routes. Well, what Tony Rodriguez, sorry, these are all out of order. What Tony Rodriguez talks about in his testimony is being in a secret space program and coming to Diego Garcia. And this is where the trade routes or the trades would occur, the exchange of the importing and exporting of planets, of materials on and off planet. Sorry, tongue tied there. And he said they would show up and they would basically they would have a list of things that they were there to pick up, and they would pick up the supplies from Diego Garcia, and then they would bring them off world to other colonies. And this was the place where that happened. So whenever you have the article talking about trade routes,
So
Indian Ocean trade routes, I think they're also talking about off-world trade routes, because if Tony's testimony is true and that's what's happening here, then there could be something to that. And I think that Diego Garcia is far more significant than we've ever known about. And as you can tell, it's an island at the center of the New World Order. There's a lot of anomalies there. And Joseph M., who I'm going to play a clip from, this is a brief clip from our interview with him, talking about what he experienced there. This kind of some stats. Actually, the whole last 20 minutes of that interview, I highly recommend. The whole interview, I highly recommend. It's completely underrated, in my opinion. Episode 383, The Haunted Outpost. You remember this guy, right, Aaron?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I honestly think it is one of my favorite interviews. It didn't get that many views, but it's very underrated. Excellent interview. I recommend everyone go back and watch. But the last 20 minutes or so, he really dives into what he experienced at Diego Garcia. And I'll play a clip from that now.
So Diego Garcia, man, is a remote place, but I'll tell you, there's an anomaly about Diego Garcia, and I'm going to give you some stats on it to anybody that's watching this, if you ever question that weirdness that goes on. Diego Garcia, again, is not an island. It's an atoll. It's the rim of an extinct volcano. At its widest point, Diego Garcia is only 3 miles wide, but it's about 32 miles long. And it has the world's third longest runway. Used to be the tertiary landing site for the space shuttle. We used to joke, if you can't land a plane on Diego Garcia, then you suck, right? Because that runway, man, just goes and goes and goes. It's not owned by the United States America. It's a buyout. It's a British Indian Ocean territory. And so you have Brits stationed there, right? British Royal Marines are stationed there. You have a Marine Security Detachment stationed there. You have spooks stationed there. And you have, every now and then, you'll have an air det roll in. But here's the thing that makes Diego Garcia weird. I did a year there. And I was in Barracks 14. I think my room literally was 201. I think that was the room I was in. But on Diego Garcia, scattered throughout the island, are these, for lack of a better word, man, these World War II bunkers. They're somewhat buried into the ground, right? And you can see them, right? But you don't know what's in there. Diego Garcia is just an old coconut plantation, is all it is, right? But I'll tell you this right now. I only went to the airport 2 times. The day I landed, and I did 364 days there, and the day I flew out. Unless you're going to the airstrip, you would never go there. Stuff goes down on Diego Garcia, man, that you would have no idea what's going on. And so when people say, oh, that's impossible, if there's any black sites, 100% there's black sites there, 100%. We used to always look out into the harbor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's these, I'm talking about these, just imagine like a Carnival Cruise Line ship, just loaded with boxes And we used to be like, yo, what is on these boxes? And so the merchant marine guys, they would come ashore, man. They would be in our gym, man. They'd be these civilians, right? They'd just be in there lifting weights, right? And we would talk to them, right? And they were like, we don't know, man. We just steamed in from Singapore. We just steamed in from Thailand. Obviously they would come in, right? But they were these massive ships, right?
So he goes on to say that all of this cargo would come in and these boxes on these ships, and half of the time he would never see it leave. And he said this all of this cargo would come in all the time. He had no idea where it was going. Well, if you tie that in with Tony Rodriguez's testimony, it's going off planet, and that cargo was taken off planet overnight, and or during whatever Tony says they would like close down a certain part of the base at certain hours and cut off access, and then they would come and get the shipment and take it off planet. So maybe that's the big secret about Diego Garcia. Not only is it potentially an extraterrestrial base underground, it's obviously a deep underground military base, but it's also a jumping off point for the secret space program, and they're literally bringing material off planet from Diego Garcia. That, in my opinion, is probably likely the reality of what's going on there. And earlier in this interview, he literally claims that he woke up one night while he was stationed there, and there was a gray alien standing next to him in his room. So all of that put together, I mean, what do you think, Aaron? Does that make sense? I mean, it's pretty plausible in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And okay, let's move forward. Okay, so now we're going to get into. Go ahead, Aaron.
The best part. This is the best part of the live. It's great. Yeah.
Okay, so this is a whistleblower from 2018 who I explained this earlier in the episode. He was in the military training in the Bay in Florida, I believe the Tampa Bay area. They were doing a training exercise, and he claims a dolphin grabbed him by the ankle and drug him underwater and took him to this underwater cave where there was oxygen and children that were being essentially housed there. And I'm just speculating that they were trafficked children that were temporarily being stationed there until they were ready for their next, part of their journey.
Yeah, unfortunately, probably. Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah. But it's really interesting. It's a nine. He came out in a 9-part TikTok series. So there's 9 parts. I put them all together. I spliced them together. The audio is a little different because the original account that this all came out on was taken down multiple times. So different people have different like screen recordings from this, and I do
Which kind
think
of validates the information in it.
Right.
Like, why would they take it down otherwise?
Right. It seems to me that there's almost like a missing chunk of information between part 1 and part 2. Nevertheless, we'll just let it play. So I downloaded all 9 parts from TikTok, and I put them in Final Cut, and I edited them together. And so it's one cohesive thing. So you're going to notice like the audio change and like the visual change a little bit throughout. That's because it's jumping from part 1 to part 2, and it'll say on screen with it. So we will go ahead and play this because it's quite long, but it's fascinating. I had Aaron listen to it. I was like, "What do you think? Should we play this?" And he's like, "Dude, that's so fascinating. We
I'm
need
like,
to."
yes, absolutely.
So I know today's a little bit of a different format. We're just playing a lot of videos here, but it's fun stuff. And we're getting ready to head to Hawaii, so we figured we cover all this aquatic stuff surrounding these dolphins. But this to me kind of takes the cake as far as just fascinating and intriguing. Like if this is true, like what the hell? What do we know actually? So let's just hit play and I'll pause periodically and probably chime in on this. But here we go.
This is the story of a group of dolphins I met in Tampa Bay. I am a high-ranking, let's just say, member of a military organization that is centered in Tampa Bay. It was 2018. I was doing some training near our base, actually, and we were swimming. And this group of dolphins was swimming around us, and we saw that very frequently. But one of them grabbed me by my foot and pulled me under. And when he pulled me under, he pulled me into like a cave. But when we got into the cave, it was filled with oxygen. And so I got up out of the shallow pool that he had dragged me into, and there were hundreds of children in this cave. And they spoke some weird language that I've never heard anything like that. They were obviously human. They were obviously just children, but they were all in this cave. And the dolphins would sit in that puddle and just stare at us. So as I got up out of that small area where I came in, where the cave was, I started looking at the walls and the pillars that were holding this cave up. Now, this cave was pretty tall. It was maybe 40 feet tall, and I would say it was maybe a football field wide. And you could see it went pretty far back, and it was lit up. And the first thing I noticed, I was looking for light bulbs. I was like, this must be, like an underground warehouse or something from the, 1800s or, earlier days. And the first thing I saw was this moss. And this moss was lighting up the cave. And I touched some of it, and whatever was on it got on my hand. And my hand kind of lit up where I had touched it. And so I was like, well, I have two options. I can either go back out where all those dolphins are sitting and try to wade and try to hold my breath and get back out, which I didn't think I could do it, or I could walk through where all these kids were. So now I got to decide, am I going to walk through? How far could this thing go? And I decided that I wasn't going to go back through and try to swim through the cave because my left ankle was bleeding pretty bad where that dolphin had dragged me for, I want to say he dragged me only about 30 or 40 feet. It was only about 12 feet deep where we were, and then he dragged me through the hole another 20, maybe 25 feet or so, and then we started going straight and went back up. So I'm kind of limping a little bit, and the kids keep coming up to me, and they're bringing me tools. And each one of them's bringing me a different tool, and these tools were old and rusted. It was like, old wrenches and spanners and like pieces of hammers and stuff, and they're bringing me these tools. And I start walking through this thing because it's not super wide, and I'm walking pretty far. I walked about a good mile, and there's still these little kids everywhere, and they keep bringing me more tools. And then I get to a spot where there's this giant, huge diesel generator, and you can tell this thing is old. I don't know exactly how old, but I've never seen one this old. And this generator is about, I want to say it's about 300 feet long. Never seen one this size, and I used to work on generators. The biggest one I ever saw was maybe 20 feet long. This thing was huge, and there's all these pipes going up through the ceiling and stuff on it. And I'm like, well, if there's pipes there, there has to be like an old building somewhere around here. And so I keep walking, and there was no way to get up through those pipes. I couldn't find a way to, even shimmy up the motor itself to even go in there. Everything was falling off the ceiling. But I finally came to a place where you could see there was an old set of stairs, but I couldn't reach them. They were about probably 15 feet off the ground, and there's nothing in here but there's like little pieces of trash here and there, and a whole bunch of like these containers that look like really old wood bowls, and I could see what they were eating in the bowls. It looked like some kind of like kelp. That's what these kids were eating. It was some kind of green, smushed up grass stuff that they were eating. And I want to say the distance I traveled to get to where there was this hole in the wall where I could maybe climb back up, I want to say it was about 3 miles. It was far. And then I had to decide, how am I going to get back up here? So I'm at the point where I see a tunnel way high up on the wall, and I know that there used to be stairs there, but you can see they've been rusted away for years, and I try to see if there's any bolts in the wall to help me climb up, and there's no way to get a grip. And the tunnel kind of ended in that direction, but then it went to the left, and when I walked down to the left about 300 feet, I could see a light, a different colored light. It was more yellow, and so I walked towards it, and when I got down there, I could see where they clearly had backfilled this thing in, and you could see shell that had been dumped in there and a whole bunch of like pitch black sulfur, and I guess this was an old sulfur mine. And right near where they backfilled it, there was a tunnel, and it was small. It was about 4 feet wide and about 4 feet tall. And if I had been able to get into that tunnel, I would have had to crouch down. And I know this tunnel went north because I knew my direction. I had been going east, and so I know this went north, and I had a pretty good idea of where it probably went because I had played in tunnels somewhere near there years before that looked the same. They had the same bricks, but there was a problem. Somebody had taken a whole bunch of glass and thrown it in front of that tunnel. And I could only see back in the tunnel about 10 feet, but I could see glass all the way down, and I didn't have any shoes on. So I knew if I was going to get through there, I was going to either have to come up with a way to make some sort of shoes, or I was going to have to find a way to climb back up that other entrance. And right in this area where the tunnel was, that was on the ground with the bricks, there was like probably 20 feet wide of stacks of old wooden handmade bowls. And so now I had to come up with a way to use these bowls to get out of here, because my option of going through the glass, it didn't really look like it was going to work out, and I couldn't find any rope or anything. So I took one of those wooden bowls and I started scraping away at the glass by the brick tunnel, and I scraped away at it for about half an hour, and then I realized that the glass was actually in the ground, and this tunnel was 4 feet tall, but about a third of it was filled up with mud and glass. And it looked like it used to be somewhere where a factory would dump old bottles. And so I never got more than about a foot of it from away from the tunnel, and I ended up giving up on that. So I took some of the bowls, and it was, it was about a 5 or 6 minute walk back to where the old staircase used to be, where the hole was up in the wall. And I brought some of the bowls over there, and I started trying to stack them. But when I would step on them, they were so old, they split. So I started using them to build up mud. And every now and then I'd put one of the bowls in there, and I'd go take a break and go get some more bowls and just leave the mud in the bowls, turn them upside down, and I started making like a little hill. And so I did this, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 hours until I got close enough to the opening that I could finally reach it. And once I could reach it, I pulled myself up. I ended up jumping. I could jump 42 inches back then, I remember. And I jumped to where I could barely hang on. And I ended up climbing up the wall. And I get up to the top. And the first thing I do is I look at the ground and I see a footprint. So I know someone's been in there recently. So I'm at the entrance to the tunnel that I think is the way out. And I look down it to see if I could see any light, and it's pitch dark. So now I'm worried that I'm going to fall into like another hole or step on something. And then I realize I'm probably not going to be able to get these kids out, because it's a good maybe 8 or 9 feet to where I had made the little hill. And so I climbed back down and I worked another hour building the hill up to where I didn't really even have to jump. I could just kind of pull myself up. And I went back to the generator, and all the kids were still around the generator. And I grabbed one of them by the arm and I kind of motioned, like, come with me. And they walked all the way to the exit, or what I thought was the exit. And as soon as I got up there and was trying to show them, like, climb up, I'll push you up, they started arguing. They started pulling the tools back out and showing me. They were pulling on my shorts and trying to pull me back towards the generator. And I'm like, these kids are nuts. Why would they want me to mess with that generator? We got to get out of here. They've obviously been here for a while. They look pretty dirty. And they didn't want to leave. And so I just decided, okay, I'm going to get them help. So I went back out the tunnel. I climbed, I had to crouch, and I crawled because I was worried I'd fall in a hole or something. And so I crawled for about 10 minutes, and then I saw just the sliver of light. And I get to where I see the sliver of light, and it's 2 big 3-foot sections of diamond plate, and it's padlocked. I can't push it open, but I know I can find something and pry it open. I know I can get out of it. I know I'm where I can escape now. And I'm going to try to get these kids some help because they don't seem interested at all in getting out of there. So before I do part 7, I've tried to tell this story about 3 times since 2018. And every time I have, all of my social media gets banned and deleted. I'm doing this on a friend's account. He has nothing to do with this. He just told me that since they were about to ban this account, I might as well do it. So anyhow, we were at the end of this tunnel, and there was just a tiny bit of light, and I saw this tool chest, and it said Gardeneer on it. And it was old. It was like from the 80s, you could tell. And I looked through it, and there was a pry bar in there. So I tried to get back up on the stairs once again. I couldn't reach the top of the stairs where the lock was. And so I had to build like a little shelf area because it's only 2 feet above where my arm could reach. And so I stood on top of this and some old metal buckets and stuff, and I started trying to pry the lock off. Took me a good 20 minutes, but I got it open. And I push it open, and I come out of there and I look around, and it's an old service building, like a brick building. And I walk outside the building, and I am in no man's land. Now, I grew up in Tampa, so I know the bay, all the areas. I couldn't see anything I recognized. I was in the back part of this bay. You could tell it was shallow water, but I could hear trains in the distance. And so I got out and I walked through some bad stuff. It was swampy, mangroves, saw palm, and it took me about 40 minutes, but I got out to Highway 41 and flagged someone down. I got brought to the hospital for a couple hours. They let me out. I went back to the base, and now I've got to tell leadership what happened. And I start telling them about the kids, and this is when it gets even worse. And just to clarify, they might delete this account again before I can finish this, because they usually do. This is
Okay, so I'm gonna pause that really quick. Somebody asked about the Carrie Cassidy interview. Yes, it's available on YouTube, Rumble, and Project Camelot website. If you want to watch the full thing, go over there and check that out. And just to recap where we're at here with this, so he was doing a training exercise in the bay in Tampa Bay, Florida. He was dragged underwater by a dolphin, brought to this cave system where there was this massive 300-foot long generator, all of these children, and it took him a while to figure out how to escape. So now he finally found his way back up to the surface, and now he's essentially being questioned by by his officers in the military, and that's where we're at now.
Part 8 of my story of when the Dolphins drug me into the cave, and I apologize for the buzzing noise in the background. I'm hiding somewhere right now, and there's a loud fan in the next room. After I got out of the hospital, I had to go back to basically our main office, and when I got there were men in suits sitting there with a briefcase, and they asked me where I had been, and they were recording it. And I said, I think I drowned and I had a bad dream. And then they said, well, you popped up about 3 miles from there, so there's no way you could have just drowned. And I guess according to the doctors at the hospital, I didn't have any signs of fluid in my lungs or anything. And so I remembered the kids down there, and I said, well, I need to tell them about this. And so I told them there's a whole bunch of kids in this old mine underneath part of the bay going up to the phosphate pits. And they said, well, these men are here to talk to you about what you saw, and we want you to sign some paperwork. And the paperwork was a do not disclose about what I saw. And I kept telling them there's a bunch of kids down there, and they kept ignoring me. And long story short, they told me never to speak about this again. And so about a month after all this happened, I was walking around at our facility, and a man I'd never seen before walked by me, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, that's the old base. And he kept walking. I said, what old base? That thing had to be at least 100 years old, if not 80. I've never even seen an engine that looked like that. I used to work on this really old boat, and it was like a tourist thing, and they had a really old diesel engine, and that engine kind of looked like that, but I've never seen anything that looked just like that thing, and it was the biggest engine I've ever seen. I have no idea what that was for. And I said, well, if these kids are down here, who's going to go after them? And so I remember that I used to play in these tunnels when I was a little kid, and I was almost positive, because of the bricks that they use, they had a certain name on them, that I could probably get back in there. And so me and a group of us started going back in there to try to get to where those kids were. And I'll do one final episode, and I'm going to put a map of where all the entrances to that tunnel that led into that old base are. And so everyone can go themselves and check it out for themselves. So this is part 9, the tunnels, and this is an actual tunnel beneath Ybor City. I did not take this picture. It is available on Google. This is what all of them look like. And we've got about 200 people that have tried to ban this account in the last week, so this may be it. So this is the area where I was training, near a small channel that comes out of the Alafai River, where I was pulled under and pulled into the cave by the Dolphin. This is the area where I started walking about 3 miles and eventually popped up. But if you go about a quarter mile from the middle of this circle, that's where the generator is in the cave. So this is the first tunnel I ever went in, and I went in this one in 1995. When I went in there, the name of that place was the Blue Ribbon Supermarket. It burnt down, and after it burnt down, they just made it a parking lot. But in the far southwest corner is where the door that went down into the tunnels was. It's probably not there anymore, but it could be. This is another one I used to go into. This building was right next to Centro Ybor, which used to be a little park with a water fountain. And the building was completely closed down, and it was owned by a South African guy. And if you ever want to know who pushed that giant ball off the top of it, I know the guy. There's a door right where I circled beneath what was a restaurant not too long ago. There's a cellar down there. People say it's creepy. They don't want to go into it. And there's a story behind that cellar as well, and I'm not going to get into it, but that's one of the tunnels as well. Carmine's, okay, it's in the back left corner if you're looking at this picture. I used to go on the one at the Blue Ribbon, which my friend worked at, and I would pop up at the Carmine's one, which one of my friends cooked at. And so that was well known. We traveled in those all the time back then in the mid 90s. Could it be filled in now? Yeah. Is it? Probably not. This is the one that gives me the absolute biggest creeps. This is the Italian Club, and it is on 7th Ave. And if you know anything about this, this is where all the big wigs meet at. And what's creepy, if you go to one of their fundraisers, you'll notice that they get up in groups of 15 or 30, and they just disappear for like half an hour to an hour at a time and then come back. Where are they going? You're going to have to do your research on this one, but it's on 15th Street and 2nd Ave. I believe this is the building. It used to be an old refrigerated meat packing place where a bunch of special needs kids worked and some pretty bad stuff happened there. The entrance is going to be right in the middle of where I circled, in that right-hand corner of that back building. But in the front, there used to be there still is probably, a police substation from like the 1970s. It's so crazy. It's like a time capsule when you go in there. But that one was also creepy to the 10th power. I would urge you not to go into that one. This is the area where a lot of these things come up at, and it's right next to the Port of Tampa, on one side of the Port of Tampa. And the media lately, I guess they caught on the story, and they've been saying, oh yeah, these used to be sewage tunnels for, back in the 1800s or whatever. Why does a sewage tunnel go back up to the surface? Shouldn't the tunnel be going into the water to drain all the sewage? That's kind of odd, isn't it? And so I just circled this general area because there's 5 of them that come up right within this little stretch. And once again, they go up, not into the water. They go up into buildings and into parking lots and into abandoned shacks and stuff. So this used to be some means of transportation or smuggling. It is not a sewer like the media is claiming. And so finally, here's the area I popped up in after I had walked the length of that old mine. Very swampy, like I said, right next to the highway, like I said, and some things people should know about that we later found out. The glowing on the wall was from all the phosphorus leaking into those caves. The moss all over the walls, it will occur in any body of water in Tampa Bay where they accidentally dump phos acid. People who live on the Alafai saw this during the mid-1990s. It consumed the whole river and killed all the fish, sucked the oxygen out of the water. That's what that stuff was. Nothing supernatural. It's all science. And those kids, they were speaking Welsh. Wasn't any crazy language. It was Welsh. I just never heard it before. So do with that what you will. But what's going on underneath Tampa Bay?
All right. So there you have it. What is the next slide? Oh, we won't get into that. I'll stop that share. So wild stuff. In my opinion, the Dolphin brought him down there to bring awareness to those children that needed to be rescued. I think the Dolphin had full awareness. I have so many questions for this guy. I wish he was around to interview him. But when he was laying out the map for the tunnel system, that reminds me exactly of what I saw in St. Louis in construction. So many buildings, downtown St. Louis, all access the tunnel network. Restaurants, gas stations, hotels, you name it, places you wouldn't suspect. They literally have access to an underground tunnel network and cave system below St. Louis. I've seen the cave system. I've been in it. I've seen old speakeasies down there, people down there. One guy we thought was dead until the fire department came and kicked him, and he popped up. There's a whole number of things going on under the ground in St. Louis, and it's like that under every city. So when he was showing these buildings and each building accessed this tunnel network, I mean, I know that's true. That's how it works. They just build right over the top of this stuff. And what the tunnels are used for, we can only speculate. Aaron, did you have anything to say about this?
Um, yeah, a couple things. So yeah, it's obvious that the media, it's interesting that the media immediately comes up with a cover story for those tunnels when too many people start asking questions and finding out about it. If the media wasn't controlled, if it was actually what it claims to be journalism, they would investigate it and at least be like, "Hey, we don't know, but this is weird. These tunnels, it is weird, but they're clearly designed to come up into these buildings and all over the place." No, instead they immediately come up with a cover story of, "Oh, they're just sewage tunnels, nothing to see here. Move along." Okay, that's a red flag, right?
Right,
It's like clearly that doesn't tell you that tells you that they know what the tunnels are, but they definitely don't want to say what they really are, and they want to just run a cover. Also interesting is that most cities, at least in the United States, were built by the Freemasons. And that whole network, as we all, most of us here know about. And you can see it in the architecture, you can see the symbols, you can see it in the layout. There's all these things, like Phoenix City close to you was named that because of a basically it was built by Freemasons, and it's the idea of like the phoenix rising from the ashes, like it's an occult, like, oh, you'll be reborn as a phoenix. Anyways, you got to wonder if like the people that designed these cities, they knew they needed an underground tunnel network
right,
from day one building these cities, like from the beginning. But they didn't want anybody to know about it outside of their own little small group, right?
right.
That's what I get from this is like this group did this intentionally, but they didn't want anyone else to know that these tunnels existed or what they were being used for. And that's, we hear about all the shady trafficking and all this stuff going on. I think that's unfortunately been going on for a really long time. And this guy said he came in to this really old base that looked way older than he's like, how old is this thing? Like, it's like 100 years old, And then there's
Right.
children in there. Like you said, they're being trafficked still, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that well, whenever he was questioned by the men in suits and they kept changing the subject
And the
about
men
the
suits, right?
so that's obviously them, okay, what did he see? And then, they're obviously changing the subject because they're protecting that, right?
Right, right.
This was in 2018, so like to think that those children had been rescued by now and that has been cleared up. Again, the dolphin bringing them underwater, I think was to bring awareness to that.
Yeah,
And so he could make
absolutely.
those videos and however that rescue would look, hopefully those children were rescued.
Right.
The
Yeah,
whole
absolutely.
jet,
It's like the dolphin was like, here's somebody I can like get to like bring awareness. It's like he was just happened to be
right,
there that the dolphin grabbed him and like, look at this. That's what I got from that too.
right. Yeah. So, I mean, the whole Gerald thing, what was interesting too, he said the dolphin brought him down like 30 to 40 feet. And the Gerald thing, he brought me down 40 feet. Whether or not the Gerald testimony is credible, I know like people like Elizabeth April, she looked into it and saw nothing. It was just completely satire, which could be the case, but also there's people who did some real like deep dives on it and pulled up some interesting information. Like we said earlier, I think that whether or not it's true or not, it definitely sparked the conversation. And here we are, all this stuff is coming to the surface now about dolphins. And then we didn't even get into how the CIA was using dolphins and training them to kill underwater divers who were getting too close to certain underwater bases.
Hmm.
There's a testimony of a guy out there I found. He was just a normal scuba diver recreationally, and he was attacked by a dolphin. And turns out that he was swimming, scuba diving too close to an underwater base, and one of these dolphins was quite literally programmed to attack intruders. And like they're unfortunately being used for that
Yeah.
reason. And so you could almost say in a sense that the Dolphins are being MK Ultra. And, if they can do it to us, I'm sure they could maybe do it to the Dolphins. I don't know. Either way, they're very sophisticated, five-dimensional beings from another planet, most species anyway. Maybe not all of them, I don't know. Uh, there's a reason they don't want humans interacting with them because they're quite literally going to snap us out of our trance and bring
Hmm.
this planet. They came here for a mission, according to Aaron McCullen. They literally came here to raise the collective frequency of the planet and pull us out of this, dense reality and spark an
Yeah.
awakening. So,
Which is the only reason these evil groups can be here and do what they do is because we haven't raised up enough to the second we hit this threshold, they're done. Like they're gone. And that's what's inevitable in my opinion it's happening. But they're
right,
on their way out rapidly right now, thank God. But you can see some of these older interviews like this Aaron McCall like from 2010, a lot at that time it didn't look like a lot of like there was like a lot of hope
right,
and things were a lot worse. So you can kind of see that in a lot of these old interviews where people are just like, yeah, man, this is just how it is, and it's crazy, like
right.
you know. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason. So if you don't know the story of Joan Ocean, she was swimming with dolphins and communicating with them and getting these crazy downloads about their history, who they
Hmm.
are, where they're from, amazing stuff. Even Sasquatch, even if, she was having communication with them. And then at some point, the FBI raided her home and took all that information and
Hmm.
they said, you can no longer swim with dolphins. If you do, we'll fine you $500. Well, luckily she had money and she said, I'm going to keep swimming with him and I'll just pay the $500 fine every time. So she would. She would go
Yeah,
out there
love it.
against their, wishes and she would still do it and then come back and then literally pay the fine. And until they finally just had enough, they gave up on it and just let her start swimming again. Well, all these years later, I don't know how many years ago it was, but then suddenly now it's illegal again to swim with the dolphins in Hawaii. But why would the FBI come in and raid her home if there was nothing to it? Why would they fine her if there was nothing to it? Which we know there is. And it just further adds validation to the fact that the dolphins are here from another planet on a similar star seed mission, just like we are. And potentially humans are walking around with dolphin souls from Sirius B, and autistic children could carry a dolphin soul from another planet. And they might be fulfilling a mission unbeknownst to us, even them in some cases.
Right. It's hilarious because it's like, okay, if dolphins are just a type of fish that you okay, so you like, oh, but you want to protect it, whatever, the BS cover, you know. Why would the FBI come in, like you said, why it makes no sense. Like
Yeah,
it makes absolutely no sense unless this stuff is true. That's the only way that makes sense, which it is.
right.
So
Yeah. So that's it for the Dolphins. I mean, there's we can go on and on and on about dolphins and whales, and we didn't even get into the whales and what they're doing with their songs and their frequency,
right.
how
And the
I
whales are
think
amazing too. Yeah.
they're retuning the grid and all that stuff, and it's all perfectly, it corroborates, goes hand in hand with the Stargates being activated and coming online, and we're needed to help recode the grid. It all goes hand in hand. We're working with the Dolphins, with the Stargates, trying to
Hmm.
take back the Stargates that have been hijacked, and we're going to Hawaii to potentially do some work there, and the volcanoes come into play in Pele, and like there's all these Earth changes and these everything's being activated. Things in the political arena are just insane right now, but it's all evidence that we're just everything's being shook up and being uprooted and moving forward into something, that I think is going to be amazing down the line. It's going to take some time, but these are the early stages of I think, planetary liberation, in my personal opinion. And
Absolutely. Yes, I know dolphins are mammals, not fish. Sorry, I was just trying to make a point. I wasn't trying to be
right,
super accurate. Yes, I know they are mammals. They are
um,
aquatic mammals. Yes.
yeah, we learned that on Seinfeld. Or
Yeah,
no, that was whales.
exactly.
Yeah.
I
Um,
also learned that you shouldn't hit golf balls on the beach because they could get stuck in actually that was a whale, but
blowholes.
still
Yeah,
whale's
yeah,
blowhole.
right,
And reached down and pulled out the obstruction.
right. So another interesting thing, there was the last slide I had on the show, but we'll just cover it and then we'll wrap this up because we both have I have some packing to do and got to get ready. So
Yeah.
there's a legend in Hawaii of the night marchers. People claim to see what look
Hmm.
like tribal men carrying torches through the woods, through the jungle at night. And there's a scary lore surrounding that. But when you really look into it, people seem to be scared away by these things. I think it's more the fear of the unknown. But when you really look into it, they are allegedly the guardians of the land. Like there's these guardian souls of the land, of the sacred land. And I think that if somebody is potentially attacked or forced out of an area, it's them protecting something. It's not necessarily an attack on a person, or that person is there for nefarious purposes and they deserve to be,
Right.
attacked or whatever the case is. There's a movie called Finding Ohana. It came out in, I don't know, I think 2020, 2019, something like that. It's kind of like a more of a happy, feel-good movie. But it's about a treasure hunt in Hawaii. These kids find their grandfather's book, and it's like a treasure map, and they go looking for this treasure, and they encounter these night watchers who are allegedly, guarding this treasure. It's really interesting. But it's just one of those lures, we're getting ready to go to Hawaii and somebody brought it up on our Patreon, our tier two Patreon hangout. And I kind of just, it prompted me to look into it a little bit. And, I'll be interested, if anybody has an experience like that. I don't know when the last time something like that has been documented, if that's still happening. But either way, there seems to be a lot going on with Hawaii. It's definitely part of ancient Lemuria. I know Debbie Solaris
Oh
is
yeah.
going to be getting into that largely in her presentation. And I'm looking forward to her presentation. She's really going to connect Hawaii with ancient Lemuria. And there's a ton of information. And there's a new continent. Well, it's not new, but they finally, it's officially the eighth continent, and it's called Zealandia.
Zealandia.
Zealandia, which sounds made up, but it's off the coast of New Zealand, I guess. And to me, I don't know why it would be like why it's not just another island,
It's just
but
the greater landmass of New Zealand that's underwater. Is that correct?
yeah, but it's still a separate island because
Oh, okay.
it's largely underwater, but then there's it's a whole separate thing out there. And a lot of the locals, I'm looking into it, people that in the area, they've always known that's been there and they've always known it was part of Lemuria. And they're calling it Zealandia. So I can only imagine the ancient ruins and potentially artifacts and evidence of these advanced civilizations that are on that continent. And allegedly it's been known about for years, but scientists have been studying it and they finally decided in late 2025 to officially name it the eighth continent of the world. So,
Yeah. Well,
so
what's interesting about that is that, yeah, so it looks like I think at one point in time, that continent was all above all land. It wasn't submerged,
it
just
was,
like
yeah.
Hawaii, just like Lemuria, because Hawaii, what Hawaii is just the tip of mountains that, the water came up and now it's just some islands. But when the water was down, it was this big, massive uh, Lemurian continent. Well, I think Zealandia was the same thing, probably at the same time,
Yeah, and
I would say.
Easter Island
Easter
is part of that.
Island was a part of
There's
that. Yep.
there's a whole sunken island chain that goes up to Hawaii that allegedly is all part of Lemuria.
Right.
So,
Right.
there's definitely grid work
Fiji, I think
happening.
Fiji too, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would love to get to Easter Island one of these days, and maybe we'll do a little retreat out there one day. That would be cool. But that's a whole expedition.
Yeah.
That's not just get on a plane and go with your suitcase. That's a whole thing.
That's a big deal. Yeah.
Um, but anyway, guys, thank you for being here. If you'd like to join us virtually on the Big Island, we're leaving tomorrow. We're hopping on a plane tomorrow. We'll be in Hawaii tomorrow night. So the conference starts Monday. Virtual passes are $55. It's a great value. You can get a ticket, journeytotruth.online. All the information is there. We're going to bring you the best possible virtual experience we can. It's going to be a blast. Been waiting a long time. This one we announced a year ago. I mean, we've been planning this one
Mhm.
for a year. There's a lot of details, a lot of moving parts with this one, but we're super excited. And it was life changing for me in 2019 when I went. And I know
Yeah.
what we're doing is significant. And I'm just grateful for everyone that's going to be a part of it. And thank you guys all for being here this evening. And also, if you would like to join our Patreon, Aaron started a new series over there called True Disclosure. There's 2 episodes up on Patreon. You can find our new Secret Space Program documentary over there. And we have a tier 2 hangout group now. For $10 a month, we do once a month. We're a Zoom hangout with anybody who wants to come on, ask questions, have a conversation. We've done 2 so far. It's a lot of fun. So come hang out over there. Next month, we'll announce the date for that probably when we get back from Hawaii. And I personally have started my own YouTube channel called Tyler Koala Unveiled, where I do kind of what we did tonight. I play segments of audiobooks that I'm reading, and I kind of react to them and chime in, and people seem to be liking it, getting into some really interesting information. So I would appreciate any support over there. If you'd like to go like and subscribe, Tyler Koala Unveiled. And Aaron, did you have any final words before we wrap this up?
No, just looking forward to seeing everybody in Hawaii that'll be there, and can't wait. And yeah, I got to get up really early, so
I still have to pack. Like I'm like
you still
barely
have to pack.
I'm barely packed.
You're
So-
like how I usually am, packing like late the night before.
Oh man, I've been so
Well, you're 3 hours
busy.
earlier than me still, though.
Yeah, I've been so busy with so many things. Like, just I don't even know. Like, I barely had time. So, and then
Amanda was packed like a week ago. She's ridiculous.
right, most girls are. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
like, you're already packed.
right. I mean, I have it. It's all in my head. I'm already there, so it doesn't matter. It's all done.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
uh, it'll be fun. It'll be easy. But anyway, yeah, we better wrap this up. We have some stuff to do, and we will be going. Aaron and
Don't
I
hit any
probably,
golf balls. Don't hit any golf balls in the ocean. Somebody
Right.
said while you're there. Yeah.
Stay tuned for a potential Instagram live on maybe Sunday or something, Saturday or Sunday. Aaron and I might do a little live from the island, just pre-conference thing. Just see, depending on how much time we have, we'll see how that goes. But we might do something like that just for fun before the conference starts. So stay tuned for that. If you're not following our Instagram, we have gained quite the following over there. So we're kind of taking advantage of the live stream feature. And so stay tuned for an Instagram live potentially on over the weekend. And I think that's it.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.
Thank you for being here. This was a lot of fun. Like, subscribe, share with your friends and family. And until next time, have a great evening. We will see you in Hawaii.
See you from Hawaii or in Hawaii.
Yeah, from Hawaii
Yeah.
or in Hawaii. We might even do a whole live stream actual episode, maybe the second week. Who knows? We can do
Yeah.
anything.
Who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
We'll see.
All right, good night, guys.
Good night, guys.